Hello and welcome to a new Lightroom quick tip. After my last video, I got a couple of messages from people saying, oh, I didn't know about the Alt key in the noise reduction of Lightroom. And well, there are a couple of other ways how to use the Alt key in the Lightroom develop module, and that is what this video is about. My name's Pete, I like pictures. Let's start. Let's start with the basic tab in the Lightroom develop module. Holding down the Alt key will help you to figure out the right exposure settings with all the exposure sliders, meaning the exposure slider, the highlights, the shadows, the whites, and the black slider. So by holding down the Alt key, clicking and dragging, you see, or just clicking on the exposure slider, the photo will turn black, meaning nothing blows out and nothing is crushed. So we can bring that up just to the point when suddenly colors appear, meaning, for example, blue means the blue channel is blowing out. Yellow means, the color yellow is blowing out. So red and green blows out. Green means the green channel blows out. Red means the red channel blows out. And you see that here. Blowing out means no further information. It's pure white. And everything that is white means all channels blow out. So very, very cool way to really fine-tune the exposure. So the photo is totally overexposed, but nothing blows out here because we can see that nothing is white in this photo. Same goes for blacks, for example, holding down the Alt key, option on Mac, bringing down the blacks, and as soon as something appears in the photo, like you see there's some yellowish here, so meaning yellow is crushed. And everything that is black means all colors are crushed, or all colored channels are crushed. No further information, pure black. And that works with the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Another thing, and I forgot to mention that holding down the Alt key will help you to reset all sliders in a certain area easily. So I can change all these sliders here, holding down the Alt key, clicking on reset tone, all gets set down. And that works with almost every tab here in the develop module. Let's continue. Tone curve. We definitely have to talk about the tone curve in a separate video one day. So no further detail here. So you can drag the tone curve here, for example, make it the picture more contrasty, stuff like that. Sometimes it's a bit hard because depending on how your mouse is set, the mouse movement, or if you're working with a tablet or something, it is sometimes hard to do that exactly, but Alt key, option on Mac to the rescue. By holding it, you will feel that you can move the points much slower and so more exactly. So that will really help you. Clicking here, for example, the midpoint, we can change that. It's hard to see on the video. You have to try that yourself. So holding down the Alt key, option on Mac, will not move the points in the tone curve as fast as you usually would. The next thing, split toning, very handy. You can do split toning, meaning giving the highlights and the shadows a different color. The problem is I say, for example, I want the shadows to be blue. I don't see that because the saturation is set to 0. I'd have to crank up to a certain value to see it. But again, holding down the Alt key, reset shadows, see, or reset highlights. But we can do that even without cranking up the saturation. So maybe I hold down the Alt key and drag the hue, and I see which color I dial in. Let's say I want to have this greenish blue. And if I release the Alt key, everything is back at normal because saturation is at 0, and then I can dial in the saturation to just the extent I want to. Same works with the highlight slider, of course, as well. So I can hold down the Alt key, dial in exactly the color that I want. For example, like so, releasing it, and then I can dial in the saturation that I want. Next thing, in the detail slider, I was talking about that in the last video, the sharpening. I won't go into detail here. So holding down the Alt key, clicking and holding the amount slider will turn the picture black and white, so we can dial in the amount of sharpening, we can dial in the radius, you see that here, you can dial in the details, and we can dial in the masking. I was talking about that in more detail in the last video, so the link is somewhere, I think on the upper right corner, and of course also in the description of the video. But there's even more noise reduction. We can do that. We can dial in noise reduction. Really probably have to go to a darker part of the photo. No, I'll choose a different photo there. I'll choose a photo with a higher ISO. Let's use that one. I don't know if that's already, I don't think it's edited. But let's reset that. No, let's go here. Reset that, and you see the photo is really grainy because I was using a very, very high ISO of 6400, and I want to really fine tune the noise reduction. I can dial in here luminance noise reduction, but by holding down the Alt key, clicking and dragging, the photo will turn black and white, so I see it a bit better. Same goes for detail, of course. I can dial in the details more or better, and the contrast. So the picture will turn black and white by holding down the Alt key, so I can see things a bit more clearly. It doesn't work, of course, with the color noise reduction because, well, we need color for color noise reduction, so Alt key doesn't have an effect here. And the last thing that I found, which you can use the Alt key with, is the lens correction. And that is a bit tricky. I hope I can show you that with a different photo. I had to crank up the color in that photo a lot, so don't be surprised that this photo looks really shitty. If we really zoom in here, you see chromatic aberrations that are lens aberrations, light refraction, stuff like that. And we can remove chromatic aberrations, of course, automatically in the lens correction tab. So clicking on remove chromatic aberrations, and they're almost gone, but they're still there. By using manual lens corrections, we can dial in the chromatic aberration reductions, the defringing. And the cool thing is, by holding down the Alt key and clicking on amount, we see exactly what is affected. So clicking and dragging the slider, dragging the slider won't change anything here, but we can see by holding down, clicking and holding down, we can see what is affected. And we can, what do we have here? We have a green fringing, so we can, holding down the Alt key option on Mac, and we can really fine tune what exactly will be affected by the defringing. Same goes for, of course, the purple hue. So that's it. I found another thing, and it also has to do with the profile correction. If we enable the profile correction, we can change the distortion of the photo. And well, that looks terrible. No, yeah, it looks terrible. And by holding down the Alt key, the distortion slider will move more slowly. But I found that, to be very honest, to be even harder than doing it without the Alt key. So I don't really know whether this is, maybe my computer is too slow, but maybe that's the reason. So yeah, these are the ways that I found how to use the Alt key in the Lightroom in the develop module. If you have other tricks, please comment on this video. So share your knowledge with us. This one's for today. Bye bye. Till next time. There's an easy way to never miss any of my videos, and that is simply to subscribe to my channel.